Okay, on the sitar, there's two sets of strings. There's the playing strings, there's the 7 main playing strings which are on top here, and there's 13 sympathetic strings under here. And the purpose of the sympathetic strings is that when you play certain notes, such as this, you can hear how it allows them to start vibrating along with that. You can, however, come underneath and play the sympathetics as well from time to time. This is the bridge for the sympathetic strings. To change the strings on the sympathetic strings, you'll notice on the bottom there's a little white post right here. You'll make a loop similar to when I showed making a loop with the pliers for the strings. It's helpful. You can just take a normal pencil and sort of wrap it within the loop and twist until it's around that, because this is about the same size. And you loop that over, and the tuners for the sympathetic strings are right here, and they feed in through little holes right here. There's a little sort of a bone hole right here, eyelet, and you pull these out, and then you wrap it around with the same technique that I showed, wrapping around one of the posts, and then insert it back in and tune it to pitch. And the pitch on the sympathetic strings varies depending on what piece of music you're playing, what scale you're playing, so that it sounds to whichever notes you'll be fretting the most. The 7 main playing strings divide into 3 groups. You have the 2 main playing strings right here. Okay. And actually most of your, about 90% or more of your actual playing is on just this first string. The rest of the strings are used to accompany that. Like I said, these 2 are what you're going to be the 2 strings that you play on. This primarily, probably 90%, probably 10% or less on this one. The top 3 thin strings here, one runs from here to here, one runs from this little post to the bridge, and one is a very high string from this. They sound like, those are called Chikari strings, and you can use those to accompany your playing on the playing strings. Then in between you have your 2 bass strings, which are right there. The general tuning is, to compare it to a Western scale, this would be middle C, and then this would be a 4th above. So this would be F. This would be an octave below, skipping. And then this would be G. So basically G, C, F. And then this string right here, this first Chikari string, is an octave higher than this G string. And this C right here, as this is an octave below, here's middle C, here's an octave below, here's an octave above. So here's an octave above middle C, and then 2 octaves above. And they use that as a reference. This sitar is actually tuned a whole step higher. In India, there's sort of a couple of different tunings, and there's a higher tuning and a lower tuning. I tend to prefer this tuning because if you're playing with other instruments such as guitar, if you have this tuned to D instead of C, you end up with an A string, a D string, and a G string, just like on the 3 strings on a guitar. So it makes it easier to play along with Western music. And also Ravi Shankar, among others, typically play in this higher tuning. So, and it just puts a little bit more tension on the instrument, makes it a bit louder as well. But so that's a general description of the tuning. Like I said, the tuning of the sympathetics, or this middle C right here, let's call it that, is typically the same as that right there. And then there's, just whatever scale you're playing to. And we'll include a piece of paper that shows just sort of a general tuning that you can do for the sympathetic strings. And you go from there. These beads, as described when we were changing the strings, are actually for fine tuning, and you move these back and forth. There's 2 down here for these two strings, and there's two up here, right here. And you can see as it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot finer tuning. You set the general tuning a bit flat with the main knob, and then you adjust it from there. And that's that more or less describes the tuning of the sitar. Some of the you'll notice that there's a swan typically on the first string. That just adds a little bit more surface area and stabilizes the tuning a bit more. And as far as some of the other different things on the sitar that are called, this is called the tumba, which is actually made from a gourd. This is a single tumba sitar. Some sitars have a second tumba up here as well. And the bridge, this top piece is typically camel bone, and that's what makes the sound. Is this string sort of laying over? There's quite an art to carving these to getting that tone. This is actually called jawari. Is the name for this top piece of the bridge that creates the characteristic sound of the sitar.